Welcome to the live stream. Hope you are doing well and holding it together. I am very disappointed to announce that it is May and of 2021. So we've officially lost all of the time. Are we not live? Oh, interesting. This is what happens when we don't check it. I'm in a vamp. Well, okay, are we fixed? It sounds like maybe we're fixed. Emily used the joke that I used on Twitter yesterday, but unfortunately it's already too late. It's already May. It's not gonna be May. It's already May. I appreciate that meme has like morphed so far from its original format on Tumblr that now it's just a picture of ramen noodles, which is exactly what Justin Timberlake's hair looks like in the video for It's Gonna Be May. Oh, Latitude says, I graduate from community college on Monday. Congratulations. That's very exciting. You applied to like 200 colleges during using the Common App or something, right? Did you decide where you are going after community college, or if you are just ignoring all 200 that you applied to? Oh, and then I can start having thoughts about time again. Here's what I am sorry to report from someone who has already graduated community college. Time is extremely fake in 2021, and any amount of graduating is probably not going to improve your relationship with it this year. My tactic is that I keep buying planners. Here, let me show you my shame. Look at all the planners I have bought in the past couple months in an attempt to figure out how time works, and none of them are helping. So time is fake. And in addition to a planner, there's also like another planner back there, I'm pretty sure. And in addition to that, today I decided to try a new calendar application. So I really am just doing the most to try to understand time, and it's possible I'm not actually going to be able to control it. So does one of those have dolphins on it? No, maybe it has like sea manatees or something. Also has my name. It says Lillian's Plans on it. It's from Mossery, and it's like underwater. It's actually like a twin book. So this half is a notebook, and then this half is a planner. And this is the one that I've been using as like my everyday planner pretty much. I'll go far back. I'm sure there's no secret stuff on like these pages, but this is like what the pages look like. They're like vertical, and then I do my little to-do list down there. Yeah. But, I'm calling all the planners research because I think I've come around to the idea that we are doing an Oh My Dollar planner this year. I'm still not 100% committed to it, but I am starting to do more and more things that I can't uncommit from. Like talk to vendors and have a distribution partner who is also possibly going to help me publish it. So it's starting the 2022 Oh My Dollar planner. So all of these are research, not just existential crises handled with planner consumption. Everything's fine. What's hilarious is I definitely ordered more planners because I was angry that I only had a half-year planner in the Mossery, and the actual like insert book to get the other half of the year was only like $9, but the shipping from Malaysia was $15, and I could not find it at a domestic reseller. And I was like deeply offended about paying $15 shipping for a $9 notebook, even though like logically buying a $24 whole year planner that you're already halfway through the year for as a way of being like less angry at that doesn't make a ton of sense. Anyway. Yeah. Well, what we're going to talk about today is not my problems with planners. We're actually going to talk about what I was planning on talking about last week, but I ended up having a pretty bad flare up and was just like on the couch for a day and a half. And so we had to move the live stream last week. However, some interesting things happened in the past week in development to talk about vaccine global trade supply. So I am excited. I'm pretty excited to talk about vaccinations and how you get vaccines for an infectious disease global pandemic out, and kind of what the different strategies that we're using. We are in a very unique period in time, and I know that is maybe a lot of people have found ways to say that recently, but this is particularly unique because there are more COVID vaccinations out being developed, either approved or being developed, than any other infectious disease has ever had this many vaccines in development. And, it's bad, but it isn't the worst infectious disease man has ever known. And so it says something in particular about the particular vectors that it has been translated by, like the fact that you've got this asymptomatic exposure and this 14-day incubation period and all of the things that has really affected both the quickness of which it spread. This disease that has shut down our entire world, and this, virus that has shut down our entire world, managed to spread around the globe in a matter of 3 weeks. And so it is, I think it's important to think about like why we have so many COVID vaccines in development when we've seen, diseases like viruses like HIV that still don't have vaccinations for them, or Ebola, which has a much higher mortality rate than COVID-19 does. Why were we not able to because there were Ebola vaccines in the pipeline, but none of them have had as great deal of success in development, and some of them were even mRNA vaccines, which is some of the unique vaccines that have come to market, but not the only kind of vaccine that has come to market for this. So yeah, it's been very fascinating to talk about it. Although I will say, in American news this week, President Biden did his 100 days in office, hey, I want to talk to you about my plan to rescue American families kind of speech. And it was there were more economic policy proposals in there that are fascinating for me to talk about than I expected there to be. There was a lot of hubbub about what would actually be in it, but once I actually was listening to it, I realized just how much meat is in there. There is, pre-K, universal pre-K funded by the government, community college funded by the government, kindergarten as well funded by the government, which, just so you know, is not like universal in all public schools in America, paid sick time, paid family leave. I mean, there's heaps of stuff in that proposal and speech Biden gave, so I would love to dig into those a different day. So Emily says emotions not always rational. Yeah, I mean behavioral economics is like the core of it's a I think it is it endowment effect? It's anchoring. I expect to pay $0 for shipping, or I expect to pay like a certain amount per shipping, and they could have just charged me $15 for the planner, the same planner, and charged me $9 for the shipping, and I would have found it more reasonable somehow. But there's like an anchoring and like relative value proximity there in behavioral economics. It's the key element of why I was unwilling to pay $15 to ship a $9 part of a planner. Do we want to dive into vaccines, or should I introduce the donut? I should probably introduce the donut, huh? I actually researched what this is, like, beforehand. Okay. So, this is a cookie butter twist. And, I don't know, it just smells like sugar. And I was like, what is cookie butter? And I looked it up. And it is cookie butter is common in the Netherlands, Belgium, and Germany, and it is an alternative to nut butters and chocolate butters, and it's just smashed cookies with butter and milk, and it like comes in a jar. Like in the States you would get peanut butter in a jar, or you would get like Nutella in a jar, and you use it to spread on sandwiches. But it's literally just smashed up cookies with butter. So they sell it at Trader Joe's, and it slaps. That does sound like something they would sell at Trader Joe's. I mean, to me, it sounds not great, as like, I don't really want to spread cookies. I don't want spreadable cookies like in my life. It kind of feels like none of the redeeming nutritional quality of, like nut butters are like a delightful treat and have redeeming nutritional quality. And just spreadable cookies, I feel like, for me, I wouldn't get the same satisfaction out of them. Apparently, we have cookie butter here. Well, it is much more common, I guess, and it comes from, we think it comes from the Netherlands because the type of cookie that is traditionally used in it is called spannuss, which, I mean, based on my German, would be something nuts. So, but they're like ginger snap cookies, and I don't know, spannuss sounds extremely Dutch to me, so. It's like Nutella, Lily. It's meant for yum, not nutrition. I don't know. I like my yum to have at least some redeeming nutritional quality, but I have a cookie butter donut behind me, so clearly, but like Nutella is like, it has a hazelnut base. So it has some redeeming nutritional qualities in it whatsoever. I think the funnest part of taking a Croatian language class with someone who's based in Croatia is that I get to learn about all the various foods that I like do or don't know about, including like vegetables and fruits and things like that. No, Nutella is mostly palm oil and sugar, but it does have hazelnuts in it. We have very good, like, Oregon hazelnuts, because we're one of the largest exporters of hazelnuts in the world, the state of Oregon is, and we have this hazelnut butter that also has chocolate in it, but it's, like, made with Oregon hazelnuts, and supreme. But also, like $11 a jar or something. It's not produced in extremely high quantities, so. All right, let's dive into vaccines instead of just food. So, let's talk about what's going on with global vaccine supply, because obviously the thing that was like gripping the world all over right now is what is happening in India with COVID being out of control. 400,000 cases were reported just yesterday, daily cases. And the most people think that the cases are actually probably 10 times higher than the reported cases, simply because testing availability is so poor in India. And the reason what is going on in India is so relevant to the national and global vaccination effort is because India is the largest exporter of vaccines to COVAX countries. And who are COVAX countries? Well, COVAX countries are technically 191 countries have joined COVAX, but of those 191 countries, 93 of them are low-income countries that would not otherwise be able to afford vaccines whatsoever. So COVAX is a public, private, and philanthropic partnership that has a COVAX facility that essentially has been tracking the development of all of these vaccines all over the world and has been managing the distribution and pooling of resources in order to get the vaccines out. So it is essentially a global buy-in pool. And every single country that is part of COVAX, including the rich countries that are part of COVAX, up to 20% of their vaccine supply will come from COVAX. So this is where the issue comes in. 70% of the COVAX vaccines are predicted to be made in India. And India has more facilities to be producing these than any other country that has low production. So of the vaccines being produced around the world, 4 countries are making 70% of them. Just 4 countries. I think total there's around 50 countries that are making vaccines of some sort. This doesn't mean that they develop the vaccines, but they're actually producing them in facilities. But the 4 countries that are making them are that are making 70% of the vaccine supply in the world are the US, China, Germany, and India. So Russia developed it, but it's actually being made in India. And those countries are responsible for a huge portion of the vaccine supply. There are also other countries that are producing vaccines, but are not exporting them. Those 2 countries are the UK and Japan. Those countries have, both the UK and Japan are actually producing those vaccines as part of a national healthcare system. And so they are not doing it for the purposes of trade outside of the country. This is important because vaccine supply is extremely uneven around the globe. And India has halted vaccines being exported to other countries. For quite a while, their leader, Modi, was blaming the United States for not allowing them to get some of the raw imports that they need in order to be able to produce certain types of vaccines. But for a long time, they wanted the India-made vaccines, the 2 India-born vaccines, to be the predominant ones. So they actually weren't producing or even getting the information on producing some of the other vaccines. So they have Covaxin is the name of it. And then what's the other one that they are? Covaxin, and they're also making Sinovac now. But they wanted to promote these from abroad. So there is some blame to be put on, other countries for maybe not getting the right kind of raw inputs for India. But India made a very specific choice in order to promote their own homegrown vaccines. Now what's going on is that they've stopped exports, and it's going to have a trickle-out effect into probably late 2022, especially for low- and middle-income countries that are relying on those COVAX vaccines because India is the supplier of them. And remember how I mentioned that 4 countries are producing the majority of the vaccines in the world? So we've got the US, Germany, India, and China are the main countries producing vaccines. Well, guess which countries are producing them at a price that is affordable to low-income countries? Well, China and India. So low and middle income countries are usually not going to be importing outside of the COVAX scheme. They are not going to go to the United States and say, hey, I want this many, vaccines, because they cannot afford what the production in the US costs. And that has to do with purchasing power parity. Like, it is a lot cheaper to produce things in India because the cost of living is so much lower in India than it is in the United States. Not necessarily because of like any highway robbery on the part of US makers necessarily. There's just very different cost of living standards, and so production can be done on a cheaper basis, not necessarily worse basis. In those countries, it's just cheaper. So there is a lot going on with what is happening in India. The big thing is that this is a huge fight right now to try to get vaccinations in the arms of people, because the sooner vaccines can get out, the more that you can slow the spread of the variant, the double mutant variant that is going around India. That one appears to be both more deadly and more infectious, like two things we really don't want in variants. The longer it takes to get every country in the world high enough vaccines to have herd immunity, the more variants are going to crop up. And then that has a trickle out effect because it slows down the ability of the vaccines to work. So one of the big slowdowns that we've seen in Africa is that because some countries have the South African variant, the AstraZeneca vaccine does not work on the South African variant. And so quite a lot of countries, so South Africa had bought and gotten through COVAX the AstraZeneca variant. And then once the South African variant started popping up and they realized that it wasn't effective, they offered to give them away to other countries in the African Union. They actually had gotten the money to buy these AstraZeneca vaccines oddly from Mobitel, like a mobile phone carrier. I don't really know why, but let's just say cool philanthropy on the part of the mobile phone carrier. Maybe it's those 5G chips we're all gonna get injected with. But they offered to get them to other countries, so they pushed them off to other countries in the African Union. But there are multiple issues with that AstraZeneca vaccine. One, a lot of African countries have had a lot of trouble distributing even the vaccine supplies that they did get. So they're not getting enough supplies, but they don't have the healthcare workers, and they don't have the facilities. So particularly in rural Africa, the estimates are that it costs $5 in transport and worker costs and marketing costs to get a $1 dose of vaccine in an arm. That is how much in more rural and hard to access parts of Africa how much actually getting vaccines out is taken. So there's some countries that have only distributed about 2% of their total vaccinations. And the longer that we go, the more likely it is that other variants are going to start popping up, because if people are catching it, it's more likely to mutate. And particularly, we know that the mutations are happening when they are in weaker immune systems. So when people that have weaker immune systems, older folks that are immunosuppressed for various other reasons, folks with autoimmune disorders, when they are getting this, it stays in their body longer and it is more likely to mutate. And usually that means that then you get a variant spreading. And so we're running into a lot of countries that essentially can't get these doses out. They don't have the healthcare workers. They don't have the facilities to be getting these vaccine doses out. There's a little bit of vaccine hesitancy going on. They say about probably some of the slowdown accounts for vaccine hesitancy. Around the world, we have seen that people are more hesitant about the COVID vaccines than they actually are about vaccines in general. And that is based on the perception that maybe things were rushed or that not enough people have had it yet, which is kind of funny because more people have had this than have had a lot of other vaccines that people more willingly get, just because of the global scale of trying to do this. So overall, COVAX's goal is to distribute 2 million doses. a bunch of those doses that went out in Africa actually expired. And there has not yet officially been approval to use expired doses. So we saw those AstraZeneca vaccines, countries were sitting on them. They were trying to figure out how to get them distributed, and they expired because they were originally supposed to go to South Africa. And there's thoughts that they can actually be distributed for, up to 90 days and be effective after expiration. But if you're sitting on a bunch of expired vaccines, should that really count against you in your total vaccination rates? And then the last but not underappreciated part of all of this is that the vaccines that have, that are able to be stored at regular temperatures rather than sub-zero temperatures are disproportionately the ones that are being produced in India. So India is shutting down vaccine exports in an effort to try to get vaccines out more to their own population to stem what is a very terrible situation going on there right now with the actual disease raging. One of the things that's happening with that is that means that not only have you halted the supply to lower and middle income countries that are relying on India to produce those those COVAX vaccines. Additionally, though the vaccines, even if other countries were able to come in and fill in, so many of the facilities that are producing the ones that can be stored at room temperature are in fact in India. And Germany is has one of the other ones, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, or Janssen vaccine is the other one, and that one is not affordable to a lot of the lower income countries, just in the way that it is produced and where it is being produced. So this is important generally when it comes to global trade. Do people have any questions before I dive into what is going on with the US and global trade? Because there has been a lot of, I've seen a lot of myths and I've seen some truths kind of passing around about why isn't the US doing more? And there's actually some news this week around that. But does anybody have any questions? Because I've just been spewing off the words COVAX vaccine and distribution a lot. Now everybody's just still talking about Nutella. I see that that's probably more important than talking about COVID vaccines. Also, I think it's important to remember that, the sharing of vaccines does not happen automatically. So there's been a lot of kind of discussion about, should these patents be shared around? Should we be, pushing these patents around? The two U.S. Developed vaccines, which are the Moderna and the Pfizer. Pfizer was developed jointly with Germany. Those are two of the ones where they keep being should these patents be shared? A lot of people don't want to actually just put the patents on the internet, and the reason is not necessarily to have a massive capitalist control of this information. The big issue is that these are not simple things to make, especially the mRNA vaccines are a newish technology. They're a little harder to make than the weakened virus forms of the vaccines, like you've seen with the Sinopharm and the Sinovac ones that came out of China. So one of the reasons they don't necessarily want to do that is because you don't want vaccines being produced that are not being produced properly. And so that is one of the reasons that they are not necessarily free and open sourcing the patents and the production for these, simply because they want it to go to facilities that they know are going to be able to safely produce it, because we are all hurt by if these vaccines are either just ineffective or if they are actually dangerously being produced. Latitude says the Indian variant sounds scary. It is extremely scary. It's I think there's a combination of things going on with the Indian variant, which is that it's very scary, and part of why what is going on in India is so scary is because their healthcare system has just collapsed. They have been moving towards privatization of their healthcare system and education and a lot of things over the past 10, 15 years in India. And it has become abundantly clear that privatization did not create the kind of robust system that they want. And then the other problem too is like other countries are helping. They're trying to get, oxygen condensers, which actually will like take oxygen from the air and turn it into oxygen, and like canisters for transport of oxygen and all of these things, and like some of the remdesivir, some of the treatments that we need to get to people. All of these countries are getting supplies, but the logistics of getting those supplies to India are not a small logistics. It's not just like, hey, I'll just like send you something in the post. Like these are all like large logistics projects just in getting supplies to India. So Latitude is just like, yes, this is all, let's just have Pokemon jokes. So anyway, should we talk about what is going on with the US? Because I think that there's been a lot of questions about what is the US's role. So the US is producing only 3 of the vaccines. However, they bought stock in a lot of other vaccines. One thing you need to know is that making vaccines is actually like a pretty complicated and risky business enterprise. And making an emergency vaccine, I mean, there were a lot of people putting up money. The US government gave a lot of money to development of a lot of vaccines. But they had no idea when they bought a lot of these stock of the vaccines which ones were going to be successful, which ones were going to pass trials or not. And so it was a large-scale, like, taxpayer-funded betting operation, pretty much. So this is how many vaccines are actually in development. So there are actually, like, 184 vaccines. So when I said that there are more vaccines in development for this than any other infectious disease, you can see that some are still in the trial phases, some actually failed use, and there are 13 vaccines that are currently in use around the world. The ones that, if you are in the US, you've probably heard about are Moderna, Pfizer, and Johnson & Johnson, otherwise known as Janssen. Moderna and Pfizer were developed by, like, US money. There's also Novavax, which is, I believe, not currently out. I think the Novavax is paused right now, or not actually out. I'm not 100% on that one. And then the Johnson & Johnson can be stored for a lot longer, and that one was developed in part with the US and Belgium, I believe. I think it's Belgium. Who has the flag like this? That's Belgium, right? The German flag, but turned this way. Latitude says, I was in a clinical trial for Novavax and it was approved like everywhere except the US. So here's the thing. A lot of people are like, oh, why hasn't the US approved AstraZeneca? Why has it like not approved Novavax and stuff? At least in the case of AstraZeneca, the company that made it hasn't even applied for FDA use of it. And I mean, I think that's one of the things to know is that, like, it's not like a lot of this, I think we have been kind of blaming on the United States government, who even under the Trump administration, and you can tell this is me giving a wide berth because I'm not normally one to compliment the Trump administration, but they were just doing their best to make the bets where they were going to put it. And they, the playbook for how they were going to handle COVID and the playbook for how they were going to deal with vaccinations, which is literally called a playbook, those were pushed out with things like international sharing in them, with things like patent sharing and stuff like that. But there was a lot of negotiation that happened with these manufacturers, which you gotta say, from a negotiation perspective, when has the United States government ever been in a better negotiating position with pharmaceutical companies? Because they've just given them tons of money to all these vaccine makers. I guess they're not pharmaceuticals, they're vaccines. It's different. But to all of these vaccine makers. However, there was something that was implemented in 2005, I believe. Is that right? I think it was 2005. Yes, 2005, something called the PrEP Act. And what the PrEP Act did is it essentially provided like this, it's like the Star Wars like shield over vaccine makers when they are when they were releasing vaccines in kind of this emergency authorization. So these vaccines were heavily tested, but this was emergency. Like, they maybe didn't get as long of trials, or they had these overlapping trials, or maybe things would have been done a little bit differently. And the PATH Act, or the PrEP Act, provides them with a lot of shield, but that shield ends at the border. And so the US was not able to negotiate with the vaccine manufacturers for actual sharing of the supply of the vaccines that they had bought. So AstraZeneca never actually sought FDA approval in the US, so that's why it doesn't have it right now. And additionally, with the makers of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine, they had said that it couldn't be shared. Like, global sharing was not part of it, because they were going to lose that PrEP Act shield over the vaccine that sort of kind of limits their liability, so to be said. And so, yeah, that's one of the things to understand. Although this week Biden said that he is going to be able to share those with India. A lot of the focus of the world is on India right now, because we are, like, here's the thing, like, there's been such uneven vaccine distribution around the world, and guess who's been getting the most of it? Like, 80% of our Israeli adults are now vaccinated. We now have over 50% of US adults have gotten at least one dose of the shot. 3/4 of United Kingdom adults have gotten access to at least one jab. Like, rich countries are doing much better with vaccine supply, and that is where the inequity is. But here's the thing. This is a global pandemic. As long as every country is not getting vaccinated, the risk to us and our economy, if you just want to put it in economic terms, continues as long as other countries are not getting vaccinated and these variants are allowed to develop, right? If we've got these mutations out there, then we're ending up with more infectious versions of the disease. We are possibly going to have to update boosters. We may find that the vaccines that we've already distributed don't actually work against the variants. So, this is a around the world graph that I just really liked. This came from PATH, and PATH is like the kind of the company that is in charge of the public-private philanthropic partnership. It's not technically a company. It's like, multinational partnership, but they've done some really excellent infographics to kind of explain where vaccines are in development. So this will list, you can see the purple and the green means that they're actually like out in the world right now. And you can see production wise how many are coming out of India. It is really important and to notice and know what is happening here, and then how many are coming out of China, right? So we've got these two are the made in India versions of the vaccines, and then over here are the Sinovac ones, and the various other Chinese produced ones. But this is what we've got. This is in raw numbers, the number of COVID vaccinations that have actually been administered. The thing is that not necessarily all of these jabs are equal, right? Because not all of them are effective against all of the variants. This is by percentage of population. So you can see this is the number of vaccine doses. This is total number of doses. The reason that it's 121 out of per 100 people is because they're at like 80% have gotten at least one jab, so to speak, but some of them are, already done with 2 jabs in Israel. But you can really see how rich countries are leading. And then Bahrain, which is not necessarily a rich country, but Bahrain has a lot of ability to get what it wants. I'm not going to say any more about that. But they did a lot of essentially betting and bidding on things early. So I think it's really important to see just how low India is on this list, given that, given what is happening right now with this mutation and variation. Also, did you notice how China had the most doses administered, but it's at the bottom of this rich country list because there are so many people that live in China and in India. And India is dealing with the same problems that I talked about with Africa, which is that distribution is such a challenge in the more rural areas. So you're really watching the same things develop, which is that it costs a lot more to get vaccines out. But the other thing is, like, healthcare workers are slammed. The cities are in crisis right now, especially in the hardest hit regions like Delhi. And quite a lot of places have actually shut off their vaccine distributions, even though the, Indian administration says they're going to try to, like, up vaccine supply. Some of the manufacturing facilities have actually had to, like pause or close down because they have lost so many staff to COVID-19, like, infections or deaths. Because it is so bad in India right now. And then a lot of the vaccination clinics have shut down simply because they, like, don't have enough supplies to actually get them out. And it's particularly bad in the most heavily affected regions because there's so much pivoting to try to get healthcare workers available to try to help in hospitals. So, hi, yes, welcome, nerds. Does anybody have any questions? Because I know I've thrown a lot at all of you. Anyone have questions? Should I just eat a donut? I feel like I've just been shouting about vaccines for, like, how long? 40 minutes? It's time for a donut. All right. I'm going to eat this cookie butter donut. Should I, like... It's a twist, which I'm pretty excited about. I like the twist ones. I guess I'll have a stronger opinion on cookie butter after I eat this donut. No questions, just bummed. I mean, I think there's a lot to be said for, like, if you want to feel hopeful, if I'm going to try to force optimism, maybe I shouldn't, but if you want to feel hopeful, think about the fact that it is amazing that we were able to have over 100 vaccines in development in less than a year, and we have 13 that are already, like, out and being distributed all over the world. The absolute phenomenal impact of being able to have every country in the world have at least some of the vaccines and have so many different kinds in development, like, it is a marvel. Latitude says, is the Indian variant immune to vaccines? Do we know yet? We're not 100%, but we actually think it is, that the vaccines in India are effective against it, but they don't really know yet. Because testing is so poor in India right now, just because of the highness of vaccines, we also are not very sure what percentage of the current COVID going around is the double mutant variation, because we don't actually know, like, how far that's spreading and everything. What is happening in India, I think people really want to blame the variant itself, but what is happening in India was a result of, very large pilgrimages with 3.5 million people all being crammed together and refusing to wear masks, and a system that is collapsed, and, like, a healthcare system that is collapsed. And I just heard the, like, health minister under Modi, like, on the BBC NewsHour, like, 2 days ago being like, it's over-exaggerated, it's fine. Meanwhile, you've got MPs in Delhi begging to try to find hospital beds for their relatives that are dying. So it's like, sounds familiar, right? Like, administration ignoring what is literally happening in front of them. Like, the data that's coming out of there is so poor right now. There's a lot of pressure from above, for, like, journalists are facing a lot of pressure to not be reporting from crematoriums, but we think that the general consensus is that the death data needs to be audited, because the death data, like, for example, one journalist was unfortunately cremating her father who died from COVID, and asked the crematorium staff, like, how many bodies they had done today, like how many funeral pyres they had set up today. And they said they'd done like 134. Meanwhile, the official number of deaths for the entire like region were only 100 that day. And like, that's also just cremations, which in areas that have more Muslims and Christians they don't cremate. Only Hindus cremate. So like there is huge issues with the data where you can physically see that, you know, parking lots are being turned into crematoriums, and there's like a waiting list and a queue and a fight to get places just to you know, respectfully dispose of your dying family member. And it is not matching the data coming out. So there's so many things we don't know. But even if it's not effective against the variants, we need to get the vaccines out. I like how I tried to have some good news for for Emily, and then I just immediately went into like about how bad it is in India. All right, I'm eating this. It's very crumbly. I don't know if that's because, like, I got this morning or... Is it supposed to be very salty? It's, like, very salty. Or does this one have... Oh, this has, like, sea salt on it. Trader Joe's describes speculoos as spreadable cookies, and I am not sure I'm okay with that. I mean, this is just a spreadable cookie. I like the sea salt on this, but I like that more than the cookie butter, I would say. It has a nice gritted bottom, though. Like, you can really see this, like, nice griddle bottom. I don't know how I've never tried it. Is that referring to the fact that it is spreadable cookies? I gotta say, I'm liking the salt part the best of this. It's very salty. It's a very, like, dense donut underneath. It's not, like, super fluff on the inside. Yeah, I'm gonna give this a 3 out of 5 donuts. Do we have the donut rating system or no? It has sea salt on it. That's why it's very salty. I like the salt part. It's like sweet with sea salt. I give the sea salt itself a 5 out of 5 rating. Like, that was delicious. Okay, that was an experience. Anybody have any questions about global vaccine supply or the donut? I don't know. What are you up to this week? We're just switching to updates about my life unless people have questions about global vaccine trade. I booked a ticket to Kenya for 2022 this week. Pretty impulsively. It was $675 round trip from the West Coast US to Kenya. And not even like on a bad airline or anything. It was, so yeah, I did that. I'm not like, I felt very grateful that I was able to do that. I just recognized that it was such a good deal. Also, I will say that like my willpower at resisting all of the flight deals I was getting had been getting chipped away at for weeks. And I just finally, like, it broke this week. I was like, that is... So before I booked it, I looked up how much I would have to pay on taxes and fees if I had booked the same ticket with award points, because I have a lot of miles and award points. And usually you have to pay some taxes and fees when you book award points, and then like sometimes fuel surcharges if you go to certain countries. And I would have had to use 80K miles, which is not bananas. And then I would have had to pay almost as much as the actual ticket was in taxes and fees. And so it was just such a good deal. So, sea lions and tigers only in Kenya. Forget Norway. I'm not, what? Can you see tigers in Norway? I don't understand this joke, so you should probably explain to me. But I could use some optimistic news about global travel in the pandemic. So here is what I'm going to say about global travel in the pandemic. I decided that this for me was like a statement of faith that I believe by February 2022, we will have global vaccine supplies more figured out, and that Kenya, as a relatively rich nation in Africa, will have a lot of their COVAX supplies. Here's the thing. We've never been like so united in trying to get something done as a globe. Like, we're more united on this than we have ever pretended to be on climate change. So if you want to feel optimistic about it, there are a lot of resources. There's even more like vaccines in the possible pipeline. And every country in Africa has now received vaccines. If we're going to talk about Africa, every country in Africa has now received vaccines. And most of them have managed to distribute at least some of them. So, yes, it is very, yeah, I think it's like very optimistic generally. Yes, I'm very excited, generally about how we are all united to try to like figure this out. And if you want to feel optimistic, I don't know, this might be just a harebrained attempt at, we're 15 months into this. We just gotta live through it. So, Latitude says, I'm graduating from community college and it feels surreal and weird. And also I scheduled a haircut, which is really exciting. The graduating is like more exciting, but I will say after like 16, 17 months of not getting a haircut, getting my haircut last week was very satisfying. And now my hair is back to all being virgin, undyed hair. I grew all this in the last year. I grew more than this in the last year, but yes, it's very exciting. I don't know what is going on. Claire, I think, is singing something, but I am unfamiliar with it, so this must be a meme that I am supposed to watch or know or something like that, but it is not something I know. It is the trendy bob, which is very in. Are you getting the trendy bob? Or is this just, are you referring to my haircut? Because this is just my default haircut. David says, I'm still doing haircuts myself. This is why I invested in hats. Yeah, I definitely reached the point where, like, I was appreciating I was learning new skills because I was just mostly letting my hair grow and I was, like, trying to learn how to do it. But this is, like, the max length I know how to make look functional, and I'd really gotten into, like, I'd started to understand why, like, the Target mom in a messy bun is such a like meme, because that's all I really had any interest in doing. So Um, my hair is a trendy bob. It's always in. Yeah, I think it's technically what's called a French bob. I think that's the name of what it is, but turf bangs are finally over. What are turf bangs? So I never accidentally get turf bangs. Are they like micro bangs, the super short ones? Or are they like the curtain bangs? Because I think curtain bangs are in. To me, curtain bangs are like, so curtain bangs are where they're like on the side and they kind of like form a curtain over your head. They are 100% like the late 90s coming back. Curtain bangs for me is like what happens when my hair hasn't been washed in a long time and my bangs just like won't lay properly. So turf bangs are the micro bangs. Well, I'm glad I don't have turf bangs. I would hate to be like unknowingly broadcasting something I don't believe in. I think turf bangs are the tiny ones. I don't know how they got associated with turfs. Probably like one famous turf has them or something. I showed you the Only in Kenya song the other day. The song was stuck in my head for hours. I did not. Was that the video? Is that where that came from? Someone sent me that link and I like watched it and it just disappeared from my head. So it was clearly not a memeable. It was not a memeable song to me. I just remember the, like, of animal memes on the internet, I remember the snake, snake, that one. Was that even a video? No, it was like a website in 1999 or something. You know what? I have no idea what JKR looks like right now. Like, she, in my head, is still, like, her author image on the, like, 1998 copy of Goblet of Fire or whatever. 1998 was not Goblet of Fire. I know my Harry Potter history better than that. Yes, badger, 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 badger. But I have like the snakes part is what stuck in my head. Pixie Dust says, I have zero knowledge of any of this. Well, it's fine. The price of a haircut last check at my usual place is $23. It was $17 when I last got a haircut in 2019. It was $12 in 2017. The cost of a clipper was $5.75. I thought I could make a finance decision. Oh, $35. I've read $5.75. And I was like, I wouldn't trust $5.75 clippers. I mean, it is a good finance decision. I definitely saved a lot of money on my hair in the past year, although I was buying things like, in my case, like rollers and stuff like that. Like I had like a brand deal where I had to be like filming for 12 hours a day and I had to do my own hair and makeup because of the pandemic. And I was like just desperately trying to learn how to do hair to look okay on camera. And so I was buying things like curlers and stuff, but I definitely saved a lot of money. I used to have friends cut my hair, and when I finally could afford to go to someone to get my hair cut, I realized why it is worth hiring a professional. For me, it's the like, I will pay that much money to not stress out about how it's going to turn out. Like, you know, I'd been with the person who cut my hair, who I originally just hired because they were next to my work and charged $40, which is like a pretty good price for like a short women's haircut, because those are like more complicated haircuts. I went in and then I ended up sticking with that person for like 10 plus years. But I would get haircuts in foreign countries, sometimes where I didn't even speak the language. Like I got this haircut in China, like this identical type of haircut in China, and I just like show them a picture of me with the hair I want, and then they cut it. And I think that cost me like $8 or something. And then I go to the hair school, but I would have gone to the hair school because it only costs like $10 to get a haircut, but it does take like 2 to 3 hours because they're so stressed out. And I ended up deciding they were probably going to be taking like the least precautions because it's like indoor, you're in there way longer. And they like are probably going to take longer because they've had like a lot less opportunity to work on clients and like less experience. So Latitude says $8. I mean, that it was like an expensive fancy haircut in China as well. So Latitude says, I am prepping to pay $75 for basically a consultation discussion of going totally pink. That seems very high for a consultation. Usually the consultations are like free or like $5 or something. I mean, I would have to go back and dig it up, but I think me going, I don't know how dark your natural hair is, but my natural hair is obviously like black, little brown if I get some sun. And it took 8 hours for someone to dye it half pink, half purple because of how much bleach we needed and to like do the bleach safely. And I think altogether, he cut me like a little bit of a deal, but then I tipped on top and I pretty much had it for the full thing. And I think it was like, a couple $100. And it was like, I needed it at that time and I saved up some money for it. But it'll definitely be probably another 10 years before I do that again. It was about 10 years after the last time I had dyed my hair pink. And I had gotten a Groupon to get someone to bleach it because I can't, like, it's just not safe to bleach your own hair when your hair is this dark in order to get it to take up pink. So unless you're very, very skilled. David says, I sprung for my own neck duster. I mean, I am jealous. I wish that I had the skills. I got the skills to cut my bangs and I got like a pair of like $10 like proper hair cutting shears. So I would stop using my fabric shears on my hair. I was like, what are the sharpest scissors in the house? Well, my fabric shears. Which are, like very expensive and should not be used. I thought they were behind me, but they're not. They're in their case. Yeah. I think the total cost is going to be $225 plus tip. It is long and thick and dark. Oh yeah, my hair wasn't that long, so that definitely had an effect. A Hardy Plus to school length haircut, multiple hours. Oof, it was too much. I've done it like quite a few times, but yeah, like I decided I didn't feel like post-vaccine I was in the mood for that. And also I felt like I could afford to splurge in my first haircut post-pandemic. But I actually had to go to someone new, unfortunately, because my hairdresser has COPD and decided to like leave the business last year. And I'm bummed about it. He's great. But I ended up just going... He works at a 3-seater salon, and I ended up just going to the person who shares the chair with him, like, the other day of the week. And I liked him, and he's great. And, yeah, there's definitely an advantage to having a relationship with a hairdresser. Like, he does neck trims and bang trims for free and stuff like that in between. And it also means that you don't have to explain it every time. Like... I don't know a lot about my hair, but the person who cut my hair for a really long time does. Like, he knows that you have to cut certain parts of it wet because it has cowlicks and stuff like that. Anyway, I'm willing to pay them $60 or whatever to have an hour of me sitting in a chair and know that I'm going to come out, like, looking better than I went in as far as my haircut versus having 2 hours of me stressing out in the bathroom with some scissors and clippers trying to figure out how to get a haircut. So, I shaved my own head when I had a buzz cut, though. Like, that I don't feel like it's, like, worth it to go. Especially because a lot of barbers, which is, like, what will not charge you that much for, like, a clipper cut. A lot of barbers won't let femme-presenting people come in at all because they, like, don't want you to cry. That's always their thing. So, you often can't get service by them at all. So... only in Kenya is from the same era, okay, as the snake thing. Yes, it's been fabric, scissors, haircut, all pandemic long. I play for sharpening them once or twice a year, so repair cost is built in. I guess that's fair. I got really tiny ones that are like, I don't know, they were recommended by Amazon. They're Japanese. I don't know, they're great. I sent them via text message to my hairdresser and was like, if I get these and cut my hair with them, will you be mad at me? And he's like, no, those are great for, like, home haircuts. Latitude says barbershops don't want you to cry. I mean, most hairdressers don't want you to cry. But a lot of barbershops, if you're femme presenting and you come in and you're like, I want a buzz cut, they'll be like, no, we don't cut your hair here. I don't know if it's that they have a bad experience or they're just, like, miss in the business or whatever. I could kind of see it if I came in with, like, this haircut, but I used to come in with very short hair, and they'd be like, no, we don't do that. We don't do women's haircuts. And I'd be like, but, yeah. Latitude says barbershops don't want you to cry. I mean, most hairdressers don't want you to cry. But a lot of barbershops, if you're femme presenting and you come in and you're like, I want a buzz cut, they'll be like, no, we don't cut your hair here. I could kind of see it if I came in with, like, this haircut, but I used to come in with very short hair, and they'd be like, no, we don't do that. We don't do women's haircuts. And I'd be like, but, yeah. Essentially, the gender normativity is real and oppressive, and that's part of the pink tax, is that you have to go pay a hairdresser that charges more, even if you want the same kind of cut, and because there are societal expectations that require our hair to look just better than we expect most men's hair to cut. Because if you think about like mask people that are in entertainment or like public facing roles where their appearance is very important, they also spend the same amount on haircuts as the average woman in a office does. So, pink tax for pink hair, yep. Full pink was supposed to be last year's birthday gift, but was illegal. Yeah, that's the problem, right? It was hard to... I think we were all going through, like, crises last year, and a lot of those crises would have been, like, either resolved or at least expressed via radical haircuts, but instead we were having to give ourselves the radical haircuts. Well, congrats. I think that is an excellent... graduation present to yourself. David says, I may change my philosophy once I need to be seen by people outside of Zoom. I keep thinking about that. I just keep thinking about, like, how much, like, for example, look at what I'm wearing on my feet right now. Like, I'm gonna have to go to an office, and I'm not gonna be able to just be presentable from here up anymore. I have to wear shoes all day. All day. What is this life? I don't know. I work in tech in Portland. Maybe I can bring house slippers into the office and just have them be my office house slippers. Okay. Well, I hope everybody has a lovely week and stays wonderfully safe. Oh, yeah. I forgot to say the other exciting thing that happened this week, which is that I got an appointment at the LA consulate to apply for my Croatian visa. So we're hoping to actually vlog it so that we can, like, put this process online, since there's not a lot of people that have been through the process that have, like, documented it. So we are going to try that. Emily says, make them train shaped. Oh my gosh. So Kawasaki City Bus has a mascot in Japan, of course. And it's like Hello Kitty, but this, like, other mascot. And they both sit on top of this bus that looks like a cat, and they wear slippers that look like a train or like a bus. And we were discussing at my very cat and transit themed day job how we need to get those bus slippers for the entirety of the office, and I would like to find them. That's it. And if I could find cat bus slippers, I would be, like, even more in theme for the office. Emily says you absolutely can. Here's the thing. I used to be the kind of person that had, like, a whole outfit, and, like, the shoes would be part of the continuation of the outfit. And I don't know if I maintain the energy to be that kind of person anymore. So, but I have so many nice clothes, so that would be nice. All right. I hope everybody has a lovely week. And yeah. I will see you all same time, same place next week. We'll probably talk next week about the American Families Rescue Package that Biden is proposing and what's the impact of some of those things are. But if you have other stuff you want me to talk about, just let me know. And stay safe out there. And I'll see you all soon. Bye.